So we were talking about a very pure, very wholesome love. And that love is something that we are not aware of yet. And I feel like we come back into this world, into this planet again and again and again until we have learned how to love in that holistic manner. And until we love it, we are going to keep coming back, right? And the closest we've probably come to understanding that pure, very true form of love is mother's love. Mother's love, because, well, that mother's love is unconditional, right? And I was reminded of Thai Manavar in Trichy. Yeah? Thai Manavar Swami is Shivan with a lot of maternal instincts. He takes on, as Ardhanarishwara, of course he has Parvati on, one side, but then he also imbibed some of her qualities, and how he was so full of love as, Thai Manavar Swami was what first came to my mind when I started, working more on Karaikkal Ammaiyar. There was this girl who was expecting her baby, right? And she was in Srirangam, Tiruchi. And she was on the other side of the Kaveri. Her husband was a businessman, he was away. Nobody else at home. Her mother was to come and help her with the delivery, right? And then the Kaveri ran in spate, right? There were floods. And the mother was on the other side of the river. She was very scared. She was like, oh my God, how am I going to do this all by myself, right? And she prayed, as she was always taught to pray, from the time she was a young girl. And she prayed to Lord Shiva. And she got a knock on the door, and her mother was there, laden with all the legumes and bhakshanams and everything for her as part of the pregnancy. And she came and she took care of her daughter like never before, right? Everything went well. The pregnancy was, a very smooth sailing one. She delivered a happy baby. And the mother also stayed back a little longer to massage the baby, care for the baby, as any other mother would, right? And this girl was very happy, very grateful to the mother. When again, one day the door, there was a knock on the door. And she thought her husband had returned, right, from his business travels. She runs to the door, and then she saw her mother. And the mother was apologizing and saying, my God, my girl, I couldn't make it in time. I hope everything went well. And see here, I bought everything for you. And the girl is confused, and she says, Amma, what are you talking about? You were there with me every minute. I'm alive today because of you. What are you talking about? See, you're there at the back. And then she goes there to the back of the house, and only the baby is there. There is no mother, right? And then they both realize who must have come in that mother's form. And they cry and they thank Lord Shiva. And that's how we have Thai Manavar Swami in Trichy. And Anda Thai Manavar Swami ke Karaikkal Ammaiyar becomes Amma. And that is why I just wanted to start off with the Thai Manavar Swami. Because imagine, he with so much compassion comes down as a mother, Naka, and then here she is considered as his mother. Right? And it is that kind of pure love that we are going to be immersing ourselves in today, right? Through her story. We have so many kinds of bhakti today, right? And the Nava bhaktis you may all be very familiar with, right? Today what all of you are doing is the Shravana bhakti. You're just listening, right? I am doing the Kirtana bhakti. I'm going to be talking about his praises, right? I'm going to be narrating his story. We have the Smarana Bhakti as well. Hopefully after the session, we all think and reminisce, right? And dwell on these stories. We have the Pada Seva, where we are actually using our body, that gift, to do something for the Lord. It could be a small cleaning, volunteering at the temple, or it could be anything, like, they're all volunteers, right? All of that is Pada Seva. Then we have the Archana. That we are all very familiar with. Puja, Deeparthana, right? Adella Archana. Vandanam. Vandanam is bowing down. Namaskaram. All of that is prayer through Vandana. And then we have the Dasya Bhakti. Dasya Bhakti is when we are in servitude, right, to the Lord. As a servant, what can I do? And we know so many devotees who were in that exalted state, right? Or many of the Alvars were pretty much in the Dhasya Bhakti. Yeah? And then we have the Sakhya Bhakti, which is very rare. Sakhya is a friend. Not all of us can think of the Lord as a friend, except probably Sundarar, right, of the 9 verse. He was truly in the Sakhya Bhakti form of prayer. And then the Samarpana Bhakti, which is pure Sharanagati. Samarpanam of everything. Not just this body, not just through prayers, but body, mind, ego, right? Ellathiyum, when they do it in the form of Samarpanam, it is a different state. And that's the state we are talking about when we are discussing Karaikkal Ammaiyar. Karaikkal Ammaiyar did the Samarpana Bhakti, right? Okay. Oops. And she was very popularly known as Payer. Payer as in pay, right? We'll see why and how and all of that, right? She was in that form. Very popularly. Payer Swamigal Nakale, it means Karaikkal Ammaiyar. And the beauty there is, Ammaiyappanukke aval ammavaga irundal. That is the beauty, right? To Shiva and Parvati. Yeah? And we're going to be just dwelling on her story today, and we go back to the 6th century for that. But even before we can get to the story, I think we should also pause and touch on the Nayanmars. 63 of them. 63 Nayanmars, 63 wonderful, absolutely differentiated stories. Not one story is like another, right? There are a lot of similarities actually to some of their stories and the stories in Bhakta Vijayam, Panduranga's stories. Right? We'll do that another time.
Yeah, can you do one? It's very fascinating.
It is. For example, inga vandu ivar, I forget the name of that Nayanmar, but Shiva Peruman will come and ask him for his wife. Testing there is a different limit, yeah. So he tests him asking for his wife, and he will say yes. Sivanadiyar, if Sivanadiyar asks me for anything, I will give, even though it is my wife, right? Because ultimately what? It's a body and a mind and another, gift from God, right? So they don't think of it from an ego point of view at all. The same thing happens with Kabir Das.
Okay.
When Kabir Das had to feed all the Panduranga Bhaktas when they visited his home, he asked his wife to go to the grocer, right? All this was in Banaras. And they were very poor. They had nothing on them, not a penny on them. They were living really, moment to moment, right? They had nothing. She goes to the grocer, and the grocer says, I'll give you what you want if you will give me you. And she says, yes. If it means that you're going to give me whatever supplies I need, but you have to trust me. I have to go back, cook, feed my bhaktas because my husband, values it a lot. I will come back to you. He trusts her. He gives everything. She comes here, and Kabir Das is very, shocked. How come you have so much? And she tells him the whole story very honestly. And he says, you did the right thing. And after the bhaktas leave, he will carry her to the grocer's house and say, I have brought you what was promised to you. Like, there are many stories which are similar, which tells us that, the same kind of stories he does, or rather the same acts.
We thought only Shiva is subjecting his devotees to such tests,
Shiva, Vishnu, they're all the same then. Yeah, they're all the same, and the same stories in different parts of the country.
Fascinating.
Yeah? And so coming back to the Nayanmars, 63 of them, of which only 3 of them are women. Only 3 of them are women. Isainyanyar, Mangyakarasiyar, and our Karaikkal Ammaiyar. And adala beauty and of course Sekidar, Sage Sekidar, he was a very elevated soul. He has written all of their stories in such easy to understand narratives, right, as part of the Periya Purana. And to me, the Periya Puranam holds a very special place in my heart because my guru, my Manasika guru, Ramana Maharishi, right? To him, this was a huge turning point. When Ramana Maharishi, as a 16-year-old boy, he hadn't read the Vedas or the Upanishads or anything. He was a school-going boy in an English medium school, right? He had just read the Periya Puranam. And he would say that he would hold the book and he would have tears flowing from his eyes when he would stand in front of the Sundareshwara shrine at the Meenakshi Amman temple. Right? And he said that was the biggest influence in my life, the Periya Puranam. And today we are picking a story from the Periya Puranam, who is Karaikkal Ammaiyar. Right? So as I said, we go back to the 6th century and the story happens in Karaikkal, which is a thriving port business center. It's a maritime center. Right? And Dharmadattan and Dhanalakshmi, this couple, very wealthy Nagaratars. Nagaratars, otherwise how we know Chettiars, right? Business folk. And very wealthy businessman he was. Yeah? They had everything they needed. And they were extremely devout, very giving in nature, right? Whoever came by that side, whether it was a Sivanadiyar or a monk, or they would first go to Dharmadattan's house because they knew they will get the hospitality they deserved there, right? And as it goes with any saint's story, it's usually a couple who don't have a child for a long time and they pray to the Lord with absolute, genuine fervor that they actually are blessed with a child, right? And they say that it's usually those kind of children who become the sages and monks that we are actually talking and, meditating upon. Because you have to want a child for bhakti's sake. Not just a child, to extend the lineage, right? They wanted a child for bhakti. We are bhaktas. We want somebody to continue that tradition and hence we want a child, O Lord. And they were blessed with a beautiful baby girl whom they named Punitavati. Right? And I read somewhere recently, as I was preparing for this session, that the Shiva Panchaksharam is Nama Shivaya, right? There are several gurus, right? The Guru Panchakshara, if you take Mani Vasakar, yeah? Jnana Sambandhar, Aruna Giri, right? In the Mani there are several gurus we can, quote in the Panchakshara. Apparently there is only one Bhakta Panchakshara, and that is our Punitavati, right? She was that kind of a Bhakta, yeah? And as the parents have set the foundation, that is exactly how the child also hears, listens, and that's how initial thoughts are formed, right? And so she was steeped in bhakti from the moment she was born. Because Dhanadattan and Dhanalakshmi were exactly those kind of people. So if Dhanadattan did the Abhishekam to the Shiva Lingam, Punitavati would also do that, right? If Dhanadattan, invited the Shivanadiyars for a meal, then she would also, act like she was serving them or doing something there, right? So it was very much that way that she grew up, and she soon became a young girl who was as kind as she was absolutely beautiful. And I think when we think of that kind of beauty, it's not about features or complexion. It's a certain tejas, right? The more bhakti, the more meditation a person is into, that tejas shows, right, on a person's face. And I'm guessing that's what would have happened in Punitavati's case. And of course, every father, every mother, the natural concern was to get her married. And they were wondering, who do we get her married to? Because this girl comes with so much piety, so much of, spiritual devotion, and how do we find the right match for her? And in that, at that time, It was more these wandering monks who would pass on all of this information from, one family to another. Otherwise, no shadi.com, right? So they had to do something like this. Yeah. And one of these monks go and tell another very well-to-do business family in Nagapattinam, in a house which was headed by a man called Nidipati. Right? He had 5 sons, and the last son was not yet married. And so one of the monks come back and they tell, Dhanadattan, and the marriage actually gets fixed between Paramadattan. Paramadattan was the 5th son of this businessman in Nagapattinam. And the wedding goes off beautifully. Everybody is very happy. And at that point, Dhanadattan, he felt a little bit of a twang in his heart because only child, got her married, now has to send her away, to the husband's house. He probably felt very sad, and then he approached his in-laws, right, his Samandhi, Nidipati, and said, I'm going to ask you something that no father would have ever asked before, right? And it may even be wrong in your eyes, but I'm still very emboldened to ask this because of the love I have for my daughter. And he says, you're so blessed, sir. Not only do you have material wealth, but you also have 5 sons, a house full of grandchildren and daughters-in-law. It must be a very bustling household. Whereas look at me and my wife. All we have is this useless wealth, which we can only use for our Sivanadiyars and Sivan himself. Other than that, what use is this to me? And now the one wealth that I had, also I've given away to your family. Can I request that your son and your daughter-in-law stay here in Karaikkal, not in my house, because I guess that might be uncomfortable for the boy, but I will give them a separate bungalow. I will set up a shop for him and a business for him here. Let them please stay here so that at least from afar, in the same city, my wife and I will at least, have some joy looking at them and spending our lives. Nidipati was very kind-hearted. He said, okay, no problem, right? And so the couple settle in Karaikkal in a separate bungalow, and Dhanadattan gives them, of course, a whole host of servants, and there's a lot of wealth that was transferred, and they're very happy, right? And the couple, particularly here, Sekirar emphasizes and says that they were such an idyllic couple. They understood each other so well, right? Now, Paramadattan, her husband, was not a big bhakta, right? He was an astute businessman. But morning, he would shower, take a bath, whatever, and put on his vibhuti, do his business. Come back, evening, again, Swami Apattu, one vibhuti, Shiva Shiva, and that's about it, right? Nothing like his wife. But he never interfered in the wife's bhakti. I think that itself is a big, boom. Look at Meera. Meera's husband and the whole husband's family gave her so much trouble, right? And to her bhakti. He wasn't like that. And when I say that he never interfered, he didn't question her spending also when it came to the Sivanadiyars. If she wanted to feed as many as she wished to in a particular day, he was okay with it. And they were anyway blessed with that kind of wealth, right? And she was also the ideal wife. She took care of his every need. She managed the house, and everybody was so in awe of this couple, right? In Karaikkal. Life was going on very well. And then suddenly, as always, right, there has to be that one turning point in a person's life. And that happened on a day when Paramadattan, as usual, whatever, he had prayed and everything, and he had gone to the office, right, his shop. And there, one of his business associates who had come to visit him had brought 2 very wonderful looking mangoes. Right? Just the way those mangoes looked was very different for Paramadattan. It was a very golden, very, lush looking mango. And with mangoes, the aroma in itself is a sure giveaway, right? And so the aroma was also, very inviting. And so he called one of his boys in the shop and said, take these 2 mangoes and go and give it to the madam at home. Tell her I will come and have this with my midday lunch, with my midday meal. The boy goes, right, and he gives it to Punitavati. Punitavati, of course, was busy with her pujas and her prayers, right? She keeps the mangoes and goes back to her puja. She hears a knock. Bhavati Bhikshan Dehi, right? And she goes there to see a Shivanadiyar who has come home for, obviously, food. But this didn't look like a regular Shivanadiyar. To her, it felt like as if Shiva himself had come down, right? The way he had his matted hair and the way he had the, vibhuti on his forehead, she felt like, my God, this looks like Shiva from Kailash himself. And she was very happy. She invited him in and she said, please sit down, sir. And she goes into the kitchen to find that she has only done the Mahanevidyam. Mahanevidyam is cooked white rice, right? Which we may all be very familiar with. Every day offering to God, white rice cooked is more than enough. That's all he asks for sometimes, right? And she had just done that for her puja. There was no curry, no sambar, no vegetable, nothing. How would she give plain rice to this Shivanadiyar, right? And then she remembered that she had set some yogurt that morning. And then she said, okay, I have rice, I have yogurt. He can have taisa, right? Yogurt rice. But what do I give along with that? How do I just give him taisa, right? And then, as she was thinking, her eyes fell upon the 2 mangoes. And she thought, this was very unlike her. She was always, as I told you earlier, very much in alignment with the way her husband thinks. And for some reason that day she felt that 2 mangoes, right? So he must eat one, he'd probably give me the other, right? And she said, I'm going to give him 1 mango with the taisara. And that's exactly what she did. And the Shivanadiyar ate it with so much relish. He said, this was like Amrit. I have never tasted anything as good as this. Wishes her very well, blesses her, and he goes his way. Paramadattan comes in the afternoon for his lunch. And as usual, as the very dutiful wife that Punitavatiyar is, she gives him water to wash his feet, lays the leaves, serves him his entire meal, cuts that other one, the remaining mango, she cuts it up and serves him. And when Paramadattan eats that mango, he says it is so delicious. Probably, I'm guessing these were probably mangoes from the north. Maybe the business associate was from the north. And maybe he had never tasted something like this, right? And he was, again, he did something very uncharacteristic there. He said, as he was eating, he said, this is so delicious, Punitavati. Why don't you cut the other one also and bring it along? Punitavati just froze because she didn't know how to react at that point, because suddenly she felt a prick of guilt which told her that she had no right to assume that the other mango was hers, right? And to her, her husband was her God. That was how she was treating him. So something that he has asked for and I am unable to give him was not, landing well with her. She wanted to make him happy. And at that point, she could have very well told him that, see, this is what happened. I've given away the mango. He would not have said anything, right? He was that kind of a man. He would have said, okay, no problem. But she said, just a minute, I'll get it. And she goes into the kitchen. She goes into the kitchen and it hits her in terms of the fact that she's also now lied to him, right? And she says, I cannot lie. Please don't make me a liar, Shiva. And she says, she's praying to Shiva, she's crying, pleading to Shiva and saying, you made somebody come and give the 2 mangoes to my husband, right? You made the Shivanadiyar come when I had not even prepared food. You made me, give him that 1 mango. And you are also the one who has made my husband ask for the 2nd mango now. Now you jolly well give me a new mango that I can go and give my husband. She pleads, right? And lo and behold, as she is pleading, there is a mango that falls into her hand. She thanks the Lord. She goes outside and serves him the mango. Paramadattan takes one bite out of it. See, he's a businessman after all, right? Very sharp guy. He knows, and he says, this mango tastes completely different to the other mango I had. They're both delicious, all right, but the two mangoes that I gave you look like they were from the same tree, the same kind of aroma, same kind of color. Whereas this one that you just gave me looks like a completely new variety. In fact, Punitavati, this is so divine in taste, I wonder if it even comes from this world. And of course, it is a divine mango, so it must have tasted extraordinarily. Now again, Punitavati is like, okay, she felt like she was trapped. What is this, right? This is getting to be testing her, right? And she tells him everything. She says, yes, this is what happened. I gave away one of the mangoes you gave me, right, to the Sivanadiya. And this is another mango. I went and asked Shiva and he gave me this mango and that is what you ate. I'm so happy that you're enjoying these mangoes today. That is why she's happy, right? Paramadattan hears the story and he said, what? Who gave you the second mango? And she said, Shivan. Shivan gave me the second mango and I just prayed to him. He knows his wife, right? He knows that she will not lie. I mean, anybody on the spiritual path will not lie, right? At the same time, he is unable, the rational mind is unable to accept the fact that Shivan could have given her the second mango. And he says, oh, in that case, Punitavati, he gave you one mango, right? Could you ask him to give you another mango so that I can see it? Punitavati felt very bad. She said, see, he can test us. We can't test him. Right? That is wrong. Please, let's not do this. And he says, no. If you want me to believe this story, I want to see how all of this is happening. I want to see this other mango. And then Punitavati realizes that maybe this was a chance for her husband to become more of a bhakta, right? And so she prays once again. She prays to the Lord, and right there in front of Paramadattan's eyes, there is another mango that comes to her hand. And she gives it to her husband dutifully. He looks at it, he's holding it, right? So tangible, right? He's holding it. He takes it close to his mouth to taste it and it just disappears. Why? Because what did he ask for? I want to see the second mango. Did he say, I want to taste it? He could have. Shivan is happy to give anything. He said, I want to see it. He saw it. The mango had done its job. It vanished. Paramadattan was out of his element. He was like, oh my God. He looked at his wife and he realized that this was a divine being. Yeah? He didn't say anything. They both went about their usual lives. See, Punitavati never thought of this as, oh my God, I'm that kind of a bhakta. Lord Shiva himself gave me 2 mangoes. None of that to her. It was like, who else will I talk to? Who else will I go with my problems? I went to him and he helped me. That's all. Very natural. So she was still the same wife. But Paramadattan had changed. He did not feel like even being near her. He refused all kind of assistance or help, or even if she had to serve him, he would say no. He kind of kept his distance. This went along for a while, and there came a point when Paramadattan probably couldn't take it any longer. He decides to leave Karaikkal. Right? They're after all traders, business folk. There were a bunch of traders who were going to go overseas, and so he told Punitavati that I'm also going to go with those traders. It'll take months, years, we don't know, for me to come back. So anyway, you have your father's house here, you should be fine. And he leaves. let's take a pause here, because I was just thinking about this particular aspect of generally, be it men or women, attaining an elevated level of spiritual energy, right? So many men we know, Purandaradasar, Kabir Dasar, so many people who have attained a higher level of, enlightenment. How do their wives behave? Very supportive, usually. In fact, the wives are not only supportive, they use their husbands' elevated states as a means for their own progress, right? Which is the natural tendency for anybody. I'm living, staying close to and serving somebody, let me progress, right? That's the natural state. But when it comes to a woman elevating herself, there is a bit of a problem there with hierarchy, right? The man is unable to understand that she can serve him, right? When she should be serving God. That he is actually seen as that God. We are talking 6th century here, yeah? And so he leaves, right? He leaves. It's been several years. Some of the traders from Karaikkal who left come back, but without Paramadattan. And they say, we don't know where he is. You know, he said he was going somewhere else, but he didn't come back. Punitavati does not doubt him at all. She just feels like, yeah, he must be somewhere else. He will come back, right? But her father is also a businessman. And through his circles, he finds out that Paramadattan has settled down in Pandya land. They are all in Karaikkal, which is Chola land, right? He settled down in Pandya land, married another Chettiar girl, and even has a little girl. He hears all this through the grapevine. He's angry, he's very angry, and he and his relatives decide to kind of, confront him. They don't tell Punitavati anything. They just tell her that your husband has been found, let's go and meet him. So they take her in a palanquin and they make that long, arduous journey, and they go there and they kind of camp in a garden there. They send word, right, for Paramadattan. Paramadattan says, I will come and see her, right? Please don't bring her here, I will come and see her. And Punitavati is actually very busy decorating herself and getting herself ready, preparing to meet her long lost husband. Her husband arrives, she sees him from afar, right? She's very happy, so she also runs outside. As they are both running, right, and coming towards each other, she also sees a lady next to him. And she sees this little toddler also running alongside her husband. And the three of them, once they come to Punitavati, all three of them fall at her feet. All the relatives are dumbfounded because they're like, in fact, scolding him. Why are you falling at your wife's feet? What's gotten into you? He gets up and he says, all of you should also be falling at her feet. And he narrates the whole story of the mangoes and how, he could not live with her as, husband and wife, and that's why he had to come away. And he says, I've even named my daughter Punitavati. Amma, please bless her. You are our Amma. I've started seeing you as my mother, right? They all fall at her feet. Everybody is seeing this whole tableau of, events unraveling itself. And Punitavati is just shocked. She doesn't know how to react. This was the last thing that she expected, right? But at that very moment, you know how Vairagya just attacks, or I shouldn't say attack, but it overtakes, right? Vairagya is determination, dispassion, and detachment, right? And that Vairagya just overtook her, and at that moment she said, this beauty, this body, I held on to it because of a role I was playing, that of a wife, for this man, right? For this husband of mine. He has given me the freedom now away from that role. Why do I need this body? Why do I need all of this beauty? I see it more as a burden. And she prays to the Lord and says, relieve me of this burden. And Sekira writes that then and there, her flesh kind of, shriveled up and she became the skeletal form. I'm thinking maybe that happened then and there. Why not? If a mango could arrive on the spot, then her body could also go through a transformation like that. But alternatively, maybe she also went through a lot of penance and meditation following this incident, not caring for her body, that it naturally went through that. That could be another very logical, way in which we try to make sense of it. She could have also thought, again, 6th century, right? At that time, she could have thought, living without the support of her husband is going to invite a lot of predators with her kind of beauty. So take that away from me. Yeah? One more reason, if you really look at it, our egos are so linked with this body, this gift. And that's why I started talking about it as a gift that we all receive, right? When we come onto this planet, for what? Right? And how much of our time, how much of our energy and attachment we associate with this body, right? From morning till night, it's all about this body, right? Nurturing it, nourishing it, caring for it, everything. So again, when she gives up her body, in many ways, they're probably also symbolically saying she was devoid of ego, completely. Most importantly also, she had this long, term wish to visit Kailash. And she also probably knew that as a single woman, so beautiful, for her to go through the hardships of walking all the way to Kailash was impossible, right? So in the skeletal form, anything was possible as a pei, right? When I say skeletal form, she was in the pei form. Very easy, right? To move places. That could have been another reason, right? And whatever it was, she was transformed physically. Her relatives are all scared now, right? Because everybody is usually scared when they look at a pei. They bow down to her in reverence and everybody goes their way. They can't relate to her anymore. And that is when she decides to go to Kailash. She goes to Kailash, and as she is walking up to Kailash, she suddenly realizes that this is holy, sacred space. What am I doing? How can I walk with my feet on this sacred land? And so what she does, turns herself upside down, walks on her hands and head towards Kailash. Shiva Shiva, right? Seriously. And as she is walking up, Parvati Devi looks down and she sees something coming up, right? And she's asking Shiva, what is this? Who is this? And what kind of love is this? I haven't seen anything like it. And for that, what Shiva Peruman says is, that is our mother. That is our mother coming up. And he invites her saying, Ammaiyar. The only person he addresses as Amma. The highest, purest form of love. And she says, Appane Shiva Shiva. Right? And he says, what can I do for you? What can I give you? You've come all this way. We would imagine her to say, oh, I don't want anything. I've already seen you, very happy. None of that. She says, I want stuff. Right? And this is what she asks for. இரவாத இன்ப அன்பு வேண்டிய பின் வேண்டுகின்றேன் பிறவாமை வேண்டும் மீண்டும் பிறப்புண்டால் உன்னை என்றும் மறவாமை வேண்டும் இன்னும் வேண்டும் நான் மகிழ்ந்து பாடி அரவா நீ ஆடும் போதும் அடியின் கீழ் இருக்க என்றாள். Very self-explanatory actually, but I just wanted to touch on this one first line where she says இரவாத இன்ப அன்பு. Because we started off talking about Anbe Shivam, right? What is that inba anbu? She could have just said, give me undying love, right? Iravada anbu vendum. What is that inba anbu? All the love that we are associated with is a love that's going to hurt us one day. Isn't it? Right? Either we get hurt by it or we are going to inflict hurt. Right? That is why she says, I want a love that is unadulterated, unalloyed, untouched, unconditional, where there is no negative feeling or emotion associated with it at any point. That's why undying, inba anbu. A love that I'm always going to only find joy in. Right? And if at all, right? Through that love, I may have to be born again. So, I don't want to be born again. Piravamai vendum. Please don't give me another birth. And if I happen to take that other birth and come on, to another body, please bless me such that I don't forget you even in that birth. Yeah. And as I am, praying and not not forgetting you, let me also have the boon of singing and being at your feet while you dance your tandava. What more can I ask for? Right? That is the highest exalted state of being in his presence, watching him dance and just sitting by his feet. Shiva says yes to everything. And he says, the only thing, Amma, you don't have to struggle in this cold weather. Go to Tiruvalangadu. Tiruvalangadu is about 2-3 hours from Chennai. Right? He says, you go to Tiruvalangadu and there I will dance and you will sing for me as I dance in the cremation grounds. In the cremation grounds. She was the brave, probably only woman who sang for Shiva in the cremation grounds. She said, I'm one of your ganas, right? And his ganas were all known to be deformed and, looking otherwise, or at least otherwise in our eyes, and maybe very normal for them, right? But that's how we know it. So she said, I'm just one of your ganas. And I will be with you in the cremation ground. And in Tiruvalangadu is where we see Shivan doing the Urdhva Tandava. He lifts his left leg. Right? The Urdhva Tandavam is very special in Tiruvalangadu. And she has a beautiful shrine there as well in that temple till today. And that is where she also composed all of her works. That is where she attained mukti. It was all in that sacred place of Tiruvalangadu. Many a time, I've just put this in English because it's easier for us to kind of understand what or the state of mind that she must have been in, right? This is how she describes herself in her poems, right? And she says, he dances among the flames and refreshes his limbs. His home is Alangadu, the Tiruvalangadu, right? These are all just little pieces from her work. Oppinai illavan peygal koodi ஒன்றினை ஒன்றடி தொக்களித்துப்பு பப்பினை இட்டு பகண்டை ஆட பாடிருந்தன்னறியாள் அமைப்ப அப்பனை அணிதிரு அலங்காடுகள் அடிகளை செடித்தலை காரைக்கால் பேய் செப்பிய செந்தமிழ் பத்தும் வல்லார் சிவகத்தி சேர்ந்தின்பம் எய்துவாரே. Meaning exactly that, right? In the cremation grounds, me, the Karaikkal Pei, who has written this, right, is saying that whatever you read of what I have written, you will definitely attain Shivagati. Right? Okay. We'll maybe move on a little bit because I'm just being wary of time. She was the only Nayalmar who is not called by her original name. Punithavati is not a name that we use generally. It is only Karaikkal Ammaiyar as we know her. Right? She is also the only Nayanmar who is in seated position. When you actually look at the 63 Nayanmars in idol form at any Shiva temple, she is the only one seated because of the respect we give to her as Amma. Yeah? She came up with the whole Andadi style of writing, Adi, right? The last word of the previous, verse is the first word in the next, Adi. Right? And that's how the whole Andadi came into being. Also the Padigam form of writing, right? She was the first one. So she was a pioneer in different ways.
What is Padigam?
Padigam is one of her key works actually that she has done. It's called the Moottathir Padigam because there were a lot of people who came up with Padigams afterwards, right? It's just a certain metric, right, as they say, right? The meter in which they write, yeah? Padigam is a certain style. Venbas, yeah, all that she created. She created, or rather composed this Andadi, 101 of them, right? So she has a couple of very important works, the Mootha Tirupadigam, the Rettai Manimale and the Andadi. These are her three most popular works, right? In fact, she is much before Samandar and Manivasakar and all of them, right? I mean, we all know of them as our prime, most important Nayanmars, right? She is much before them. They used to revere her as Amma. In fact, Samandar refused to go into the Tiruvalangadi temple. He sang only from outside the temple because he said, Tiruvalangadi is a place where my mother walked on her hands. She didn't place her feet. How can I? So I'm not even going to enter the temple. I'll worship from outside. That was the respect he had. Even today in Karaikkal, there is a festival called the Mangani festival, where all these people, right, when the Ther is coming, when the chariot is coming in the during the procession, I think it's a month-long festival during the month of Ani, if I'm not wrong, and they all throw these ripe mangoes at all the Shivanadiyars on the street, right? That's something that happens even today. There is a temple for Karaikkal Ammaiyar. There's a shrine there for her. And the only thing she emphasizes through all of her hymns is Sharanagati. And the confidence for us to be able to go after that Sharanagati. I mean, confidence and presence and all that we talk about very comfortably today, right? 6th century to think about confidence in bhakti is, I think, a different state, right? And that's what she tries to communicate. To find the divine within, right? To let go of that ego. And she showed that through her thought, through her speech, through her actions. And she showed that devotion has no gender. Yeah? I mean, we talk so much about women's liberation today. She was highly liberated back then, right? Even without a body, who are you to judge me, right? This is who I am. As ugly as I can get, as scary as I can get. People were running away from her. And that is what gives me the power to be closer to him. Yeah? I just want to finish with this one verse. This touched me actually because this is such a simple verse, but Vanattan என்பாரும் என்க மற்றும் அம்பர்கோன் தானத்தான் என்பாரும் தாம் என்க ஞானத்தான் முன் நஞ்சத்தால் இருண்ட மொய்யொளிச்சேர் கண்டத்தான் என் நெஞ்சத்தான் என்பேன் யான். What does this mean? Very simple actually. She says, some people say that he lives in the heavens. Some people say that he is absolutely out of reach. Right? Don't even bother. He is too far. Some people say that he is just energy or he is just knowledge. And I say no. Right? With a very firm heart, I tell you that he lives inside of me and inside of every single person who believes in him. What more do we need than this? Right? This is the kind of confidence we need, especially when today our children, people ask us, can you show us God? Sure we can, right? Through our stories. And sure you can see God as well, But just like how if you want to become a doctor, if you want to become a scientist, you have to go through the specific work that is required, right? I can't suddenly say, I want to become a doctor. Can you make me a doctor? Sure. Spend 10 years. Right? Spend 10 years studying, you will become a doctor. Same way, you want to see God? Sure. Spend your lifetime and you will see God. Right? It doesn't come easy. So yes, I hope and pray that we all progress in our own spiritual journeys. We are all blessed by Karaikkal Ammaiyar to have this opportunity to meditate upon her story, imbibe her values, her bhakti, at least a small percentage of it, and move forward in our own journeys. Right? Let's maybe chant a little while and then we'll close. Yeah? Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala Shiva, Arunachala. Ayambakam yajamahe sugantim pushtivartanam urvarugamiva bandhanat mrityormokshiyamamrite asatoma satkamaya tamasoma jyotirghamaya mrityorma